Hi, I'm Dave Bryce with the Music Player Network, and as a rule, I try never to come out of the house missing a front tooth. But my buddy Ian Benhamou is in town with his band, The Musical Box, to play The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, and he's kindly consented to take us on a tour of his keyboard rig. So, Ian, show us what you got, man.
All right, so very simple. We're gonna start with the Hammond here. Hammond T100, which is what Tony Banks switched to for the Lamb. So it's all over the Lamb and everything after that. It's like a spinet organ. It's very much like the L, except it's transistor based. The main workhorse synthesizer that he had through the 70s, the ARP Pro Soloist. Running through some pedals, a little octaver and a little Echoplex. There's also a real Echoplex, but we'll get to that later. Mellotron M4000D, which is the basically digital version of a real Mellotron with all the real samples, the original samples from the master tapes. An RMI Electro Piano, which is all over the Lamb. That's a big part of the Lamb Lies Down album. And a Kurzweil PC3X, which is basically just used for piano and a little bit of MIDI control for the digital mixer back there. So I have different presets for every song. But other than that, there's just piano being played on it. And that's it. Some pedals and, a couple cool little toys. Oh yeah, I forgot the beauty over here. A real tape Echoplex. This is an EP3 or an EP4?
EP3.
It's an EP3?
Four.
It's an EP4. So it's basically like an EP3, but it has an EQ on
the LEDs, the record level LEDs.
Yeah, exactly. And you have record level LEDs, so when you're running through it, you can tell how hot your signal is coming in. And you control your tape. And that's running through an aux send on the mixer, so I could choose what's being run through the Echoplex. So most of the time it's the ARP, but sometimes for like Hairless Heart, it's the organ, sometimes it's the RMI.
So, of course, the Yamaha digital mixer is the same one that Banks used.
Yeah, of course. Original from 1974. Yeah. Now this is, look, we're all using all the original instruments, but to try and get as close as possible with all the mixes and all the right EQs so that you're not, things are not out of balance. Having presets for every song with a different mix, different routing, different effect sends and all that stuff, just to get everything nice and clean and nice and even from show to show, consistent. It really, really helps. So
now, when Banks played the shows originally, all he had was the RMI for the piano. There wasn't any digital.
That's right.
Piano.
He didn't have a digital piano. So he would have had exactly this setup with a real Mellotron and no piano. And he would have an Echoplex, an EP3 probably, not an EP4, but whatever. Okay, and he wouldn't have some gizmos like I have here, like the octavers and all that stuff, but he would still have all that, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you haven't had the occasion to customize things the way you have on some of the previous tours?
No. This is a recreation of the real tour. So we're trying to do as much as possible exactly what Genesis would have done back then. So we're using all their same instruments, and we're trying to figure out their routine in terms of like, he played this part on that sound, on this instrument with that sound. He played that part with this sound. The only where we give ourselves a little bit of freedom is with the piano, because there's acoustic piano all over the Lamb.
Lamia.
And he played them live on the RMI, but that leaves much to be desired personally. So I think we have the technology to play it on a real piano today, so why not?
Well, let me ask you this. First time I saw you guys doing the Lamb show in Toronto, I remember being amazed by the waiting room and wondering how much of that, if any of it, was sample-based.
None of it is sample-based.
That was what I was
hoping. You'll hear it tonight. It's all...
Can you give us any insight?
Well, we kind of break it down into like these little scenes. So like, the first section, the guitar player, Hackett's is doing this. Collins is playing on the vibes. So we each have we figure out, he's using that sound. He's using, it's easy to figure out because we know the instruments that he had. So there's only so many sounds he could have produced. So
I suppose
you hear it and you're like, okay, he's kind of screwing around with this. We're not lifting it note for note, but we're like, okay, that scene he's playing kind of in this register. We're trying to pick out little melody lines if they're there. If it's more noise based, then try and reproduce this noise as much as possible. Then move on to the next scene. Then move on to the next scene, and move on to the next scene.
So you just have basically Francois duplicating Steve Hackett being Steve Hackett. Steve Hackett loved those noodling little, scribbly little bug music stuff.
Yeah, he lifted all those parts, all those atonal like chord changes with the delays and the volume swells and everything. It's very impressive.
to say the least.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Can you give us an example of some of the sounds that you like to show off the best?
Sure. Well, here, let's go through a little bit. So, for example, we could do. The lamb light on the show obviously starts with the piano, but then it switches to the RMI. Let me get that going here for you. So.
Love that style. I don't know of anybody else. I've never seen anybody else do that overhand style.
Yeah, you see that a lot in classical like concertos and stuff, but yeah, in a rock context, I've never seen that either. And he used that technique all over the lamb. Right?
And ripples too. Into some of the other stuff, he has that technique.
Yeah, exactly. There's like cross-handed thing, and then but on the lamb specifically, like riding the scree, you'll see a solo. He does that, and it's a technique obviously he was into at that point, and he used it to write a bunch of cool little riffs.
He lifted it from classical.
Yeah, because even like in the cage. Cross-handed, but it's almost cross-handed. Yeah, so stuff like that. So to go back to the RMI, what's cool is that this sounds kind of tinny when it's being played just like this, right? There's no velocity sensitivity and everything, but there's a feature here called organ mode. It sustains the note like an organ. And then I have a customized fuzz and phaser, like Tony Banks had. He had a built-in fuzz and a phase MXR 100. So if you turn the phaser on, and then you have the organ mode with the sustain. Sorry. It's on the wrong preset. See, that's why you need the mixer.
Wow. This is the same setup you're using this on the nursery clamp stuff also, right?
No, he got this during the Selling England tour, so it's only on the lamb and trick of the tail. Basically.
What was the electric piano he was using on nursery clamp that you were doing?
Pianet.
Yeah.
Pianet. He didn't have this yet. He got this during Selling England tour, so it's on the lamb and it's on trick of the tail.
It's still the RMI.
Yeah. It's what you hear on the robbery assault and battery.
Yeah. Is this a 368?
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So that's one of the cool things, and then with the phaser you get that extra swirly stuff. It's the same thing that you hear in the Lamia, in the chorus. So it's got that sound that you hear all over the lamb with the sustain, and then if not without the organ mode and just like the regular sound you get, right? Yeah. So that's basically that instrument.
This the phaser, no controls. Is it was?
No, the controls are here.
Phase 90?
You don't see
can't
them.
see them.
You don't see them, but they're here.
There. So it is.
I have all the
looks like a phase 90,
switches and the speed. It's a phase 100. So you could choose the mode and you could set the speed. And then this is a fuzz just with like a drive and it's really noisy. But I don't use it that much. I use it just for 2 songs.
We've lost our lights.
Yeah.
Oh, there they are.
So yeah, that's it. I mean, look, we'll listen to the Echoplex too, which is cool when you do it on the
Please.
On the Hammond.
There you go. Here, let's start. And a quick slap. It's nice.
Yeah, and here you're hearing it all in mono in the monitor, but out front it's a little bit pan, so you're hearing the slap on one side, so it gives a stereo kind of effect, so it's a little bit larger.
So tell us your impressions about this particular tour, having had a chance to actually dig into the the legendary lamb.
The material is obviously amazing, and there's tons of keyboard. There's keyboards all over this album. It's every song, and because it's a stage play, every song crossfades into the other. There's no breaks to set your sounds, and a lot of times we're in the dark like this. Sorry, they're doing it like this.
It's okay, it's rock and roll.
Trying to do this. So you got to switch your sounds in the dark in between songs, and there's very little time because everything is crossfading into the next song, and because there's so many keyboards, you never. Tony Banks never stops playing in the entire show. There's a few instances where he's not playing, but or else there's always something to do. So that was the on top of learning the parts, but the whole getting your choreography down of where to switch your sounds and when to do it. Sometimes I'm switching sounds 3-4 songs ahead of time because that's the only chance I'm going to get to do it.
I remember when we talked when they were doing the Extravaganza tour about the fact that you had to put together a rig that never existed because you were playing different songs from different periods.
Right.
How does that differ from playing a rig where you have to rigorously stick to the sounds that are being played and the way they're being played?
Well, in a way, it's a simpler rig because it's just one era, and there's less instruments and there's less sounds to cover because it's a very specific sound for just that tour and that album. It's consistent throughout. So in that sense, it's easier and there's less to manipulate, right? On the previous tour, Extravaganza, I had on top of this, I had a 2600 with an Echoplex. I had a bunch of pedals that I had to switch on and off for different sections and different songs to cover different areas. Whereas this, it's a little bit simpler, although it is still highly complex because it always is. Right?
Tell us, what are the highlights of the show for you?
My favorite song on the album has always been Chamber of 32 Doors.
Wow, interesting.
And it is my favorite moment of the song. That whole intro with the Mellotron. Here, I'll play it for you so you do it.
Please.
That's again that famous...
Maybe it's the one before it.
Okay, exactly. So we get the Mellotron here. Okay, so I got to get the volume pedals. So that's one of my favorite moments. I got a big keyboard solo in writing the scree, which I love. It's a big challenge.
Show us.
Oh, man. I'm not warmed up.
No, I don't want it. Don't make me.
Do it. Do it.
We don't care. No one's going to see this.
Yeah, exactly. No one's going to see it.
We're not going to put it up on the internet or anything. I promise.
Aftertouch.
Yeah. That's so cool.
He used a lot of the aftertouch effects on this album, which is cool. He explored like all the depths and all the possibilities on such a simple synthesizer because of the aftertouch effects. You have this, you have like a little.
Wow.
You'll hear some of that stuff a lot in waiting room and stuff like that.
And this going from that real reedy square wavy sound over to the fatter horn sound at the end of the radio.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be more like this on waiting room.
Oh, that would be it.
Yeah.
Dude, this is so cool.
Very cool. Very cool.
Trying to think.
I got one. So you're touring with a bunch of vintage stuff. Dave and I noticed when we walked in, there's not less than 50 pro soloists back there lined up, just as spares.
Well, we
There's
have
one.
The drummer plays a small synth part with me in the Lamia.
Yeah.
There's two harps playing at the same time and the piano, so I'm doing one. Exactly. It's actually during the interludes here. Right, it goes.
Right.
But there's a second synth part, so he's playing it for that, and there's another one backstage that Frank, our guitar player, plays the harmony and writing the screen. You know the.
Off stage?
I'm
shop,
playing
so you're
that, he's playing the harmonized backstage
Yeah.
during that section.
But you're pretty comfortable and relaxed having the vintage gear out. I noticed there is actually one spare back there.
Yeah, we have spares for everything.
Yeah,
we have a
okay.
spare RMI with the same custom mods. We have a spare Mellotron.
Oh,
with a
spare T102?
Spare Leslie. Actually, the Leslie's the only thing we don't have a spare of, but
Okay.
we have a pedal in case.
Yeah.
And we have, because we have 4 ARPs, we always have a spare.
So this is
Okay.
different from the last time that you were in town, where we had Ken Rich hook you up with some keyboards. You actually,
Yeah.
because this one you got.
Yeah, that leg of that tour, we came just for a short leg, so we just flew in, we backlined the drums and the amps and a few things, and the organ. So that's why Ken Rich was kind enough to supply a really great, he found a really good L and did the customizations that we needed. But this is our T that we found that our tech back home set up for us, and we have a spare one in the truck in case.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great.
Brother Stan, any other questions?
No, that's mine. It's great.
Okay, Ian, thank you so much for taking the
Thank
time.
you
We're looking
so
forward
much.
to seeing the
Sorry,
show.
it was a little bit rushed. We're in the middle of a sound check here and a light test, but it is what it is. Thanks
Once
for coming.
again, I'm Dave Bryce, a music player. Behind the camera, Stan Cotey, Ian Benhamou, and thank you so much for musicplayer.com. See you soon.
Ciao, guys.